The next generation of great Catholic podcasting is here. This is what your brain has been waiting for. Topics that come up around the dinner table will be given the truth treatment, all from a Catholic perspective. Sit back, relax, grab your cup of coffee, and enjoy the show. You've just joined Monday Mornings with Matt and Kevin.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome into Monday Mornings with Matt and Kevin here on the Catholic Family Podcast. Today is the feast, actually, of Saint Augustine, certainly one of the greatest minds ever to exist, and once a terrible sinner turned doctor of the church. A little bit more on that in just a bit, but I hope you all are enjoying your Monday morning so far. I had that cup of coffee, which is so essential to my start of the day. I don't know about you, but I've always hoped that a priest never told me as a penance to take out my coffee. It has not happened yet. I don't know what I would do. I guess I would have to learn to sacrifice with love. But hey, so Kevin is away for a little bit, but a friend of ours, friend of the show, friend of mine, Eric, is joining us again. Him and I did a show a while back, and he's been so kind to say, yeah, sure, I can hop on with you guys to cover in Kevin's absence. So Eric, how you doing, buddy?
Doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm good. We had a few things to talk about. We wanted to start, I know, with the debate, right? That has been a lot of talk, especially since Donald Trump has turned himself in, posted a picture of his mugshot, which was going around the internet, has been the focal point of many memes and people making all sorts of comments on that. But Eric and I talked a bit before the show, and we kind of we don't really know where this is going to go yet, but we kind of made some points of how we might have a different view of one of the candidates that took the stage the night of the debate a few days ago now. And so, Eric, what I thought of here as I watched the debate was, okay, here are 8, 9, 10, however many there were candidates.
8, yeah.
Were there 8? Okay. And I just felt like, here we go again. Names that have been thrown around. I met Chris Christie years ago, actually.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is he as large as he looks on TV?
He was larger.
Oh no.
I think he's done better for himself. And what's funny is that I really liked him a lot back then. This was, man, if I had to put a year on the year that I met Chris Christie, 2012, 2011, 2012.
Okay.
A while ago. Yeah. So he was probably in the 600-700 pound range. That's mean. I shouldn't do that on this podcast, whatever.
We're supposed to be charitable Catholics.
That was charitable. Maybe that was charitable in my estimate. But so when I turned it on, Eric, I was like, okay, here we go again, right? Here are the same 7, 8, 9, 8 names, as you just said, that we've really seen a lot of. And there they all are with their tuxedos on, their dress shirt, their tie, and it's like, here we go again. But there was one candidate which all eyes were on, because similar to Trump, and I got a lot of Trump appeal out of him when I watched Vivek Ramaswamy, I believe.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
Vivek.
Vivek Ramaswamy. All right. So let me preface this here by saying I am a registered independent. Neither party represents me, and I want to preface it that way. So I kind of went into this with an open mind. I think Donald Trump is such a big lead, Eric, on all these other candidates that it's almost like, what is the point of even having this?
Yeah, the tagline for the debate should have been the race for second place.
Second place, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Whether you like Trump or not,
right? This really is like a race for who can finish in a very, very, very distant second, so it seems. So Eric, I wanted to kind of start with you, because in my take from the debate as I watched all of it was, Trump was not there, and so the candidates needed somebody to pile on, and I feel like they piled on Ramaswamy, because unlike the rest of them, who are often well into their 60s, 70s, and 80s, Vivek is younger. He's 38 years old. He, in my mind, was pretty charismatic up there. And I actually thought that he made a lot of good points against a lot of these Republican establishment candidates who are at sometimes war hawks. And I think he had a bit more, I guess you can say, conservative approach that resonated with a lot of Americans than these establishment Republicans who are in DC, inside the Beltway, status quo professionals. And he pushed back a little bit, and I was kind of appreciative of some of his responses. So before we maybe dive into a bit more detail, what were your thoughts or takeaway of what you saw the other night, Eric, in this
Yeah.
debate?
Well, I don't think there's any debate, pun intended, that he was sort of the center of the stage, right? Basically, he had the question, elephant not in the room. Vivek was doing his best to be the Trump, right? He's basically a millennial Trump, is kind of what I felt he was trying to go for, and he succeeded in doing. Um, a couple of his points were really good. I'll get into a couple specifics, but he mentioned, we need a positive vision for conservatism instead of just, at least we're not Democrat strategy that seems to have been going on for a while. Calling climate change a hoax, that was refreshing.
Mm-hmm.
But there were a couple issues, and one of them was, at one point he said, we don't need incremental change, we need a revolution. To me, that is absolutely not conservative, right? Conservatives are typically the mindset of, we live in a valley of tears, people in general suck, let's just do the best we can type of deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
He calls it back to the American Revolution to make it sound better, but I don't know how many good revolutions have there been in history, right? How many, for lack of a better term, Catholic revolutions? Just throwing that term out there made me a little nervous, and it was less conservative and more populist sounding to me. What are your thoughts on that particular?
I do think when I looked him up, I do, I want to just be clear that I don't know if this is the exact wording. I did glance over at one point, but I didn't read this before the show. But I do believe that he mentioned himself as like a nationalist. I believe actually it might have even been on the Wikipedia page, as much as you want to trust or not trust that
Exactly.
site. Who
Huge
knows
grain
what
of
you
salt.
read on there being true. But I believe that he did have that Trump-esque I'm a nationalist point. Now, kind of diving into that, Eric, did you catch his point about funding Ukraine and what Nikki Haley and the
Yes.
other candidates have to say? All right, what were your thoughts there?
So, to a certain extent, I tend to be a little bit more isolationist than, the typical war hawk Republican,
Nikki Haley.
field. Basically saying to withdraw all support, including financial, from Russia, like immediately, or not from Russia, from Ukraine. It sounds good. It makes a good soundbite. I think we probably should be thinking harder about the money we do send them. But at the same time, I don't know. It was kind of it sounded soundbitey to me.
Well, here's a question that I have, and maybe you can either answer it or kind of share your thoughts with it, or really expand on what he said, because he made a point, and I thought his point was really clear. They asked him, "Would you continue funding Ukraine?" And his answer was, "I would not." And of course, Nikki Haley immediately jumped on that, saying, you don't have any foreign policy experience, and based on what you're saying here, it really shows. Well, my question is, and I know Trump brought this up, this was a big part of Trump's both campaign and his presidency, is why do we fund and protect all of these countries, all of these people, where it doesn't seem like anything is coming our way in return? Is this a one-sided friendship? And I think he made a point, Vivek, and he said, we're concerning ourselves with a border crisis, really, on the other side of the world. Why don't we pile more in those resources with the U.S.-Mexico border? And the thought that I had here is, would you ever have it happen where, okay, there is a crisis at the border? I think both parties, in some way, they don't agree on the solution at all. They determine there is trafficking, there are drug cartels, there is a problem at the U.S.-Mexico border. Would there ever be a country, say, I don't know, Germany, Japan, name whoever you'd like, say, oh wow, the U.S. and Mexico, there's a crisis at the border. I think we need to send the U.S. $40 billion a month to help fix this. That doesn't happen. So why is it always on our plate? And I think this was kind of Vivek's point, is why are we always throwing money around the globe, really? What do we get back? Do you have any insight, maybe, Eric, or any thoughts? Or
Well, so I mean, some insight there would be that we know Russia hates us, right? Russia is our enemy. Ukraine is, certainly more corrupt than a lot of people are willing to give them credit for. But, the enemy of our enemy, I suppose we can throw money and money and old unused, arms that we need to get rid of anyway towards them. But no, it's a good point. And I know, like, the hawk answer would be something along the lines of, well, we're the leader of the free world, right? if we don't get involved in this border crisis, Russia will just eat Ukraine, and then they'll eat Poland, and then we'll be in World War III. Right. And I think there is some truth to that, but I think we take that too far as an excuse to get into wars that we don't need to be getting into. As far as the Mexican border crisis, I mean, 100% agree with him and you that we should be taking care of that first and foremost. That should absolutely be our top priority over all these foreign wars. But I think, Nikki Haley may have had a little point there too, saying you can't just paint it with broad brushstrokes. You can't say, we're going to completely not help Ukraine. So one of Vivek's, he made some comment like we're actually playing into China's hands by assisting Ukraine in the war with them. Did you catch that or understand what he was going for there?
I did catch that. Yeah. And so I feel like, he sees any Ukrainian pushback or any Ukrainian alliance, like, as you would said before, as somewhat directly or indirectly an assault on Russia. And I believe from what I got out of his stance was that Russia and China are allies. So it would be a China-Russia versus US war. And the more we fund Ukraine and the more we assist Ukraine, the more obviously Russia is going to show their aggression towards Ukraine. They are fighting a war that they want to win. And Russia will turn to the aid of China. I believe that's what he was getting at there.
Do you
Making
buy
it
that though?
Do I buy
Like
that?
so,
No, I
so
don't
yeah.
think
So
so.
like,
I don't.
let's say we do like withdraw from Ukraine. I think that would make, or not withdraw. We don't have any troops there, but
We just
withdraw
stop.
all support from Ukraine,
I
right?
don't
And just say, okay, this is no
know.
longer our business. We're doing absolutely zero on it. Russia would roll over Ukraine. It would now be a part of Russia. Do you think they'd stop there? Like, do you think
Do I
they'd
think they
say,
would stop?
okay,
Do I think
now
they
we're
would
good?
expand into Poland?
Yeah, I don't know. And it's a
I
guessing
think,
game.
again, I think they could, and I think Russia could. That was been the point. I believe that Putin has this vision of his that is a reunification almost of this old Soviet Union, or he has a different vision of that part of the world than what the rest of us do. Vivek called Zelensky a bully.
Hmm.
He and again, I think a lot of his points against Ukraine were true. I don't
Hmm.
think. What did he say? He was like, all you people up here, you think Zelensky's like your pope,
Yeah, you take a pilgrimage to Ukraine and
as
meet
he's
your
your
Pope
pope,
Zelensky.
as he's your pope.
That was
Um,
a pretty good line. I'm not
but
gonna
I
lie.
I do think like, man, like maybe I'm more isolationist than others, but if that's Russia, I guess you make a point. We're like, okay, we are the so-called leader of the free world. We have not only a military but an economy and a dollar of a currency that nobody could come close to matching. Whatever the critics might say, there's nothing. American might in both military and financial power is unmatched. Um, but I'd hate to just the thing is with this is I feel like they can't wait to send billions of dollars to Ukraine where there are much better causes that can be used not only with our own say border with Mexico but other causes. The student loan debt was a big conversation, right? And Joe Biden
Hmm.
forgiving $10,000 from each borrower, etc. I think it makes a lot of people upset where they say we don't have the money to do that. We can't use taxpayer dollars to forgive your student loans. Well, look at where our taxpayer dollars are going. They're going to Planned Parenthood. They're going to Ukraine. They're
Hmm.
funding Japan's military. They're funding Germany in a lot of different ways. I, I think at some points, and I'd hate to say this, but I think at some points there are Democrats who have valid points over the Republicans as to where our money is going and how all this stuff is funded. Now, do I think that the U.S. has to be involved in every event? Well, why isn't Canada? And maybe they are.
Hmm.
Maybe I'm just not aware of it. But why isn't Canada or why isn't I don't know Spain or
Hmm.
France, Germany? These are big countries too. Are they funneling money to Ukraine? I don't know.
Yeah, probably not. And again, like I don't want to sound. I'm sort of partially taking this position because it makes for a more interesting discussion.
Sure.
But at some point, like okay, I see the argument where okay, we let Russia roll over Ukraine. We don't do anything. That's fine. Who knows what Russia's going to do? But now that emboldens China to roll over Taiwan. Do we care about
They
that?
could.
Right
True.
now, China's going to roll somewhere else, and Russia's going to roll somewhere else. At some point, the U.S. will have to become involved. Right. What we're not going
Maybe
to do is allow China to take over the entire world and not fight them until they're like literally on the border of Canada or Mexico. Right.
So I wonder if the U.S. is kind of a joke here, but maybe the U.S. should start doing that. I say we invade Canada tomorrow,
I know.
and then
Take over all of
maybe
North
Russia will
America.
fund us. Let's
Yeah.
inverse that. So, for the sake of time, Eric, let's jump here a little bit. What are people like? I don't know, Chris Christie doing on this stage?
Chris
I think
Christie,
the
Asa
only
Hutchinson. He was like, what was his point of being there?
I don't know. The only
Like,
point, the thing is that Trump, to me, this is where Vivek is very strong. They asked him, or they asked the panel, I believe it was. And now I'm jumping around. I think DeSantis, by the way, let me jump in with him real quick. I think he looked lost.
mhm.
I was really disappointed in how Ron DeSantis performed. Now, apparently, according to some polls, I don't know where these polls are coming from, but apparently, according to some polls, he won the debate. I saw a DeSantis who I thought was going to be a strong candidate, not answer questions directly, afraid to answer a lot of questions. But when I heard it, I think his answer on abortion was abysmal. He really didn't answer directly. They would ask him a question, he would give 5 other things of what he did as governor. Maybe this was part of his debate prep. Don't answer a question, tell us what you did. Okay, I think there's some credibility to that, but I think he's severely underperformed. I don't think I'm afraid the likability factor, I think, plays a role. I think it's why Obama beat Clinton in 2008 as part of it. I don't think he's very likable. I think Vivek had a very likable, maybe you disagree with me, but I think he had a likable, charismatic appeal. I
Charismatic
think
for sure. Absolutely.
right. I think he would be fun to hang around with. I think DeSantis is a total bore. Now, not that we're voting for president based on how exciting they are, but I think DeSantis severely underperformed. And you've got some guys like that. What are they
I'll tell
doing?
you what I saw in DeSantis. I saw like a really smart, intelligent guy who went up there basically with marching orders and was uncomfortable delivering them.
That's a good point. He did look uncomfortable. That's
Right?
a very good point. He looked stiff. This was not natural for him.
And I've seen some of his other you know, content when he has rallies and all that type of stuff, and he's totally likable, totally charismatic. When he's off the cuff, he's amazing. Right? He's like quick responses, and so like that wasn't the same guy. So someone is in his ear telling him, say all these things, make sure you say this, make sure you do this, don't raise your hand, blah, blah, blah. And he was just following those marching orders. And I hope he corrects that, because honestly, I think he's a pretty decent candidate. But yeah, if he acts like that, he doesn't have a chance.
Because I thought that too. I thought he had several press conferences where he was very witty, very quick, very fast with the press, turned it around on the press, put them on the spot when they tried to put him on the spot. I thought we were going to see that the other night, and we didn't at all. I thought I thought he was at the bottom. I thought he totally flopped from what I thought we would see.
I wouldn't put him on the bottom below Asa Hutchinson.
Right. There were a few
and Chris Christie, the guys who are only there because they hate Trump, and that's it.
Well, think about it too. So honestly, Trump, again, some polls that I looked at had him at literally a 56, 57 point advantage. You're not going to go anywhere if you're Chris Christie. I think the only thing is that they're hoping for is that Trump is so severely damaged by all this indictment and by these election result consequences here, that I think that they're hoping that he is taken and pulled off the ticket, and then now candidates or the people, I almost said the laity, the people are left with a pool that is not Trump in it, and I think that might change.
And then second place becomes first place. Yeah,
right. But I think the message that resonates with the people is still a Trump-esque sort of political. His polls are very clear,
and you saw that with
help
Vivek,
yourself,
right? For better or for worse, the Republican Party is becoming more and more populist and isolationist, and Vivek knows that, and he's tapping into that. The problem for him will be, I don't know too many people who would vote for the guy trying to be like Trump instead of Trump himself, right? So where is his actual voter block?
I think, yes, I agree with that there. And I almost think that in a lot of ways, not all, but I think in a lot of ways he took Trump's place. I think if you insert questions, right? So that when they said, how would you handle climate change? And he raised his hand and he said, this climate change agenda is a hoax. I can hear Trump saying that. When they said, will you fund Ukraine? He said, I will cease funding. I think that was almost like a Trump-esque answer. I think he's in a lot of ways, he's trying to channel his Trump responses, because he sees that's where the vote is going. Now, I think I don't know if he's serious about being president now, but I think he's channeling himself either as a future candidate or a replacement, because people who Trump's popularity is huge. Again, if you look at exit polls or generic election polls, he's well above these people. If Trump is somehow either unable to run or, let's say he gets elected and it can only serve 4 years, somebody wants to ride that movement. They're not going to ride the Chris Christie movement. Vivek has create a pathway for himself.
And if you can have a Trump who, you know, doesn't have legal problems, you know, hasn't been 3 times divorced and had all his other scandals and issues.
Right.
Yeah, I could see that being a niche that needs to be filled. And I think Vivek is just smart enough to jump in there.
It's interesting. Somebody asked him, because he's a Hindu. Somebody asked him, how do you feel about this? Especially since obviously the president of the United States, on his oath, he swears on a Bible. He said, I'm not running to be the commander of theology of a country. He went to a Catholic high school in Nova Sordo. He went to St. Xavier High School. And what's interesting, I wanted to throw this out there too. I don't know if you caught this, Eric. It's on YouTube, I believe. I saw it on another platform, but you could watch it. He was the valedictorian of his high school class, and he gave a speech. And it was very charismatic, just as he was the other night. It was very charismatic, exciting, very well written and delivered speech. He would, from what I know anyway, he would be the first I guess you could say, I hate these terms, a non-Christian president. Which would be interesting. And I am not commenting on that now, but certainly something to keep an eye on as well. You know, did you catch the question on abortion? And do you have?
Yes, I was gonna hoping you were gonna lead into that. Yeah.
What did you think there?
Well, so let me take a roundabout way of answering. So I assume, I hope, are you a states' rights kind of guy, or are you a big federal government type of guy?
Well, overall, I would say abiding by the Constitution. I believe the 10th Amendment does have weight to it. I do believe that the federal government does not have the authority over the Bill of Rights, and I do think that what's not outlined in the Constitution should default to the states. I think that is a point that I
100% agree. In general, I'm a very big states' rights guy for, you know, most things, even things, you know, like Second Amendment, that type of thing. And so Doug Burgum actually had a pretty interesting response on the abortion thing, saying like, leave it up to the states, right? Here's the Constitution. And I think probably
he pulled it out of his pocket, right?
Yeah, I'd have pulled it out of his pocket.
Pulled it out of his pocket, yeah.
Instagram picture time. But yeah, no, so like leave it to the states. And in general, if you say leave it to the states, I'll like you and agree with you. This is the exception, right? Because what are the things that we are guaranteed to?
Yes.
Right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We're guaranteed to life, and it's not by the government, right? Endowed by our creator with unalienable rights. So this is the one case where states' rights isn't the answer in abortion. You know, just like you couldn't say, well, you know, if New Jersey wants to, you know, legalize murder, that's fine, you know, as long as we don't do it in Texas. It's the same thing. So while I appreciate in general the states, you know, this state sovereignty approach, abortion is one that I think, who was it? A couple of the candidates. I think Mike Pence was probably strongest on the
yes. I was just going to say, I was going to, yes.
Yeah. And then Nikki Haley was sort of along his lines, but a little bit more compromising. And I think she made the point, not because she is more compromising on abortion, but just because knowing the status of Americans, right?
Yeah, and two things here. Yeah, I maybe even three things. First, yeah, I agree with you. And I think part of the beauty of our country is that if you don't like what's being done in New York, for example, you are free to go to Oklahoma, which are two very different political landscapes. You are free to do that. One point to bring back to DeSantis was he didn't answer the question. The question posed to the candidates were, now that Roe v. Wade, which really Roe v. Wade, what it did was it defaulted abortion back to the states. That's basically what it did.
Yeah, all it did was overturn a terrible and unconstitutional judicial ruling.
Right. So it defaulted back to the states. So the question was, do you support a national ban on abortion? DeSantis didn't say yes, and he didn't say no. He told us what he did in Florida. And now again, and then he concluded by saying here, actually just pulled up some of the quotes. He said, I will stand on the side of life. Okay. Again, I think I think the candidates know that when this topic is put to the polls, it doesn't do well. I
Mhm.
think overall, I think the pulse of America is that abortion throughout all 9 months is not popular at all, but people do want to see some sort of options. They don't
Mhm.
want a complete total wipeout of you can't do it at all. I
Yeah.
don't think that's very popular at all. So I think the candidates know that, and I think they're careful in how they deliver their answer. I agree with you. I think that Mike Pence I believe he actually quoted scripture. I believe he said, "Before I formed you in the womb,
Mhm.
in the womb
That
I
was
knew
pretty
you."
cool. That was a good moment.
Which, yeah, and he stood strong on that. There was somebody here, and I'm just yeah. So Senator Tim Scott, I pulled this up here, Republican, South Carolina. Yeah, South Carolina. He voiced his support for national ban on abortion, and here's a point that I think is strong, similar to what you said, Eric. He said, we can't leave it to Illinois. We can't leave it to Minnesota. And the point really here is, if we believe that unborn children have the right to life from conception in this country, a child should not be safer if he's conceived in Tennessee than if he is in, I don't know,
Mhm.
Massachusetts, right? And I think it's a good point. But again, I think we saw a lot of this of Ron DeSantis not projecting an answer as to what he would
Mhm.
or would or would not do, just saying what he did in Florida. I don't think they asked Ramaswamy on this. I don't think we saw.
No, well, I think Ramaswamy had no problem stepping in and giving an answer on any other question, even when it wasn't his turn. That was the one that he didn't
He
bother
didn't
stepping
spark.
in because he knew it was bad for him.
Hmm.
So I was disappointed in that from Vivek, actually.
I'm curious. I don't know his official position on everything. Now, what's interesting too here is all of these people on the stage, all 8 of them, they call themselves pro-life, all
Mhm.
8. But obviously they have different parameters as to how far we should or shouldn't go with limiting it. I do think Pence gave the most agreeable answer there. Um,
Yeah, too
I
bad he has absolutely zero chance of
Zero
becoming
chance,
the
zero
nominee.
chance, and I don't like him. I think I think he shot himself in the foot. This is just completely uneducated, unresearched guess. I think he shot himself in the foot when he distanced himself from Trump. I think he was more popular earlier on in Trump's presidency, serving as the VP. I think he tried to distance himself as the more quiet, reasonable, I guess you can use
Mhm.
that word phrase. Um, Sort of,
Well,
I'm going to decide with the Constitution over Trump, and I think that
yeah.
upset a lot of the
Well,
base.
and I'm not the biggest Pence fan either, but I'll defend him a little bit on this, right? I mean, look at how Trump basically called him a traitor,
He
right?
did.
He told him basically suspend the Constitution, do your job, get me back in.
Yes.
And we can have the debate on whether there was widespread cheating and election fraud enough to turn the election, but either way, Pence didn't have the right to do that, and so he
Right.
was right to not do that. And I think most of the candidates supported his right to basically say no, I'm not going to overturn the election.
And I think
And
80
I've heard
million
the
voters
theory
did not.
going by that the only reason that Pence is even running is basically to like officially have a platform to clear his name of, being called a
Any
traitor.
Trump association there.
Yeah.
I think so as well. So really quick, Eric, we can transition kind of over to this as we wrap up here. We're already approaching half hour for the show. Speaking of rulers and uh, leaders of nations, one of the things that I really found from coming over from Novus Ordo for quite a long time to tradition was feast days. In the Novus Ordo growing up, I had no idea that saints had their own days, that the church honored them on certain days. Even the mystics saying that saints are most powerful on their feast days. I'd never heard of any of this. I think the only thing that I knew ever was Saint Therese was in October. I think that was it.
Okay.
I did not know that you can have a whole calendar here full of saints. That was brand new to me. And August was really full of them, right? We have looking at my calendar here, Saint Philomena, Saint Augustine again today, August 28th.
Yeah,
A
I
whole
can
bunch
just
of
pull up the list of all the recordings I've made for all the liturgical years.
there you go. It's
Got
loaded.
Saint Lawrence, Saint Alphonsus Liguori, Saint Rose
Yeah.
of Lima, Saint Augustine, Saint Louis.
It's remarkable. It's remarkable. So the on Friday, the saint that I wanted to touch on here was Saint Louis, King of France. Talk about an upright, good, moral leader of a nation. There was a quote that I read of his, Eric, that I wanted to just briefly share, and we can kind of wrap up the show today. He was the more I learned about King Louis of France. He was a model in every way, and a model for Catholics, a model for men, a model for leaders, and he was very generous in his reign. He used a lot of his wealth, the wealth of the country, wealth of France, to build glorious cathedrals to house the church's sacred treasures. He fed the poor. He gave alms. He was very much a people's king. And this quote that I wanted to share, how far we've removed ourselves from men like this. This is a quote from Saint Louis IX, King of France. He said, quote, "I think more of the private chapel where I was baptized than of the cathedral of Reims where I was crowned king. For the dignity of a child of God, which was bestowed upon me at my baptism, is greater than that of the ruler of a kingdom. The latter I shall lose at my death. The other will be my passport into everlasting glory." End quote. It's King Louis IX of France, Saint Louis IX, King of France there. I think he's one of the greatest monarchs ever to have lived. And you think, Eric, I almost called you Kevin. Man, sorry. I think I let that slip like 4 times last time. So none today. Half there is a win for me.
You got close.
Think about where we are today, right?
I think about the 8 candidates we just were talking about.
Correct.
Any one of them going to say something like that?
Right. Exactly. It just, to me, it goes to show you that God has given us these great saints. And as far as I know, I believe that he's the only monarch, I could be wrong, but at least of France, to be canonized. That there is, in my opinion, I like to keep this as a window of hope, that there can be good, holy, virtuous leaders, and we need to pray for that. I don't think St. Louis IX just came across by chance. His family was very holy. His mother said to him when she was raising him, she taught him to pray the rosary. She said, "I would rather see you die at my feet than commit the slightest of sin." I think that hope like that, we need to maintain that as Catholics. And I think we forget that we need to pray for our leaders, because I think when our leaders are so far gone, right, you look like there's no hope. Like how do you go from a Joe Biden or a Nancy Pelosi or a Gavin Newsom to this? It might not be them, and it probably won't be them, but I think we need to certainly pray that we can galvanize such leaders in our own times, because God's grace is the same, right? This one God, this one true God still exists, and the God of Saint Louis IX is still our God, the one true Catholic God today. We need to pray to him to give us these leaders, and I think it's very important. And for our whole country, I think America should certainly turn to these monarchs such as King Louis, who have reigned and now reign in heaven, to help us, because what a beautiful thing it would be to be led by such leaders. And you can make your case against him. There are things that he might not have been perfect on, but men are holy, women are holy, not for what they write or for what they accomplish in their lives, but because they lived holy lives. And we need holy leaders, virtuous leaders. So we'll pray for that, and candidates who uphold, right, those values that we as Catholics hold to. Any final thoughts, Eric, as we sign off?
Yeah, no, absolutely. 100% agree with pray for, our country and our leaders, and recognize that we as Americans, and, any country, any civilization, always gets the leader it deserves.
Sadly.
Right? If you're bummed out like I am that 2024 is going to be Trump and Biden again, I have to pull myself back and realize, as a society, this is what we've earned. This is what we deserve. But yeah, pray and work.
Yes.
Right. You're not magically going to God's not going to come down and elect us a leader. Someone, if we're to get a good leader, is going to have to work their way up to it. Yes. Dare the wilderness of politics as a Catholic, and that's the start.
Eric, if I'm ever president, you'll be my running mate. I think.
Okay.
I think you just made your case there.
or maybe I'll be a Vivek and just try to be a Matt, a millennial Matt. Oh wait, you are a millennial.
Yes, I am. All right. Well, on this feast of St. Augustine, we ask his intercession. Thank you for tuning in to the Catholic Family Podcast, Monday mornings with Matt and Kevin. I don't know what next week might bring. I believe Kevin will still be away, so we'll see what we can work up for next week. But until then, God bless.
God bless you, man.
Thank you for listening. Tune in every Monday at 9 Eastern for a brand new episode.